All right, this is Honors Algebra 2 Pre-Calculus. We are doing section 6.2 in Algebra 2, which is compound interest. So the compound interest formula, so the total amount of an investment A that earns compound interest is given by A of t equals P, where P is called the principal, times the quantity 1 plus R over N, where R is the rate as a decimal and N is the number of times something is compounded per year. And the parentheses all to the nt, where t is time in years. So this is a formula that I'm going to suggest in a couple minutes you make a calculator program for, because it's a bit of a pain. But we're going to practice using this formula some. So let me just explain. The most complicated thing for most people in here is what n is. So you're usually going to see n in some kind of word or phrase, right? So here's the word, right? And I'm going to go ahead and translate to what that means. N is this value. So if you see the word annually, or the word yearly, right, either of those, that would mean n is 1, right? If you see the word monthly, for example, right, monthly would be 12 times a year, so n would be 12, right? If you see the word quarterly, right, quarterly means 4 times a year, right? If you see the word, let's say daily, right, if you see daily, then n would be 365, and there's different ways. You know, if they said something like twice a year, n would be 2, right, etc. So that's the gist. That's how we find n. So let's go ahead and use this formula. This is a formula that you're very specifically going to use in this class, and that, again, I would suggest making a program in your calculator for, which we'll go through in a couple slides as well. All right, so find the total amount of a $100 investment. So that $100 is P. The word for that is principal. It's not the same spelling as the principal, like your principal, Mr. Domers. It's principal with an L-E at the end. Principal, like Mr. Domers, is principal, P-A-L. Principal, meaning first or starting, is P-L-E. It comes from the Latin principio. So the principal amount that I'm starting with is $100, right? They tell us after 10 years. So what that's telling me is that T is 10. They say a 5% interest, which means my rate is 0.05, right? And we're asked to find the amount, right? So we're asked to find A, we don't know A, and then they give us 1, 2, 3 different options to plug in. So essentially what they want me to do is actually 3 questions. They want me to find the interest the amount if I accrue interest annually, which would mean n is 1. If I accrue interest quarterly, which would mean n is 4, right? And if I accrue interest daily, which would mean n is 365. So this is the same task. It's just a matter of typing a different number in for n. So my amount, right, so A of 10 is going to be P, which is 100. 1 plus R over N to the NT would be a 1 times 10, right? And that's what I'm going to put in, and I'm going to get a value in dollars, right? I'm going to do the exact same thing here, but instead of plugging in n is 1, I'm going to plug in 4, right? That's the only difference here. So this would be 4 times 10. And again, we're going to find that value in a sec. All right, and then the last one, A of 10, would be 101 plus 0.05 over 365 to the 365 times 10. And again, I'm going to get an approximate value. So I'm going to go ahead and put all those in my calculator. I am going to show you how you can make a program for this, which would be really nice. So 100, 1 plus 0.05. I'm going to go ahead and write divided by 1, even though I don't really have to, and we'll talk about why in a sec. Caret, and then I'm going to put in parentheses a 1 times a 10. Again, even though I don't really have to, I could just put the 10. I'm going to do that. So there's my first value, right? So we're going to we'll screenshot that and drag it over in a sec. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'll put that right there, and then we'll write the number underneath. Now I'm going to hit second enter, and we've talked about this a few times because it's really useful, right? And now I'm going to go and change the n's from 1 to 4. So I just need to change that to a 4. And again, this is why it was useful to type in the whole thing at the beginning. And I'm going to get this value, which I'll go ahead and drag over here. All right, and then I'm going to hit second enter, and this one's going to be a little harder because now I need to squeeze a 365 in. So I can type the 3, but in order to get 65, I'm going to have to hit second insert, and get a 6, 5 there. And the same thing's going to happen when I go to this 4. I can type a 3 over the 4, but I'm going to have to hit second, insert, and then a 6, 5, right? And you can see that I'm all set, and I hit enter, and screenshot to get my value. So when I do that, it looks like what I get. Since it's money, we're going to round or truncate to 3 places, right? So you're going to get 162.88 or 89. I would take either of those, right? So you're going to round or truncate again to the hundredths place because it's money, right? This would be a 164.36, right? And this would be a 164 point either 86 or 87. Again, because it's money, you go to the hundredths place, and that's the idea. Now we're going to write a program to do this a lot easier in a second. All right, so go ahead and try a P2. Same idea, right? So find the final amount, which would be A, right, of a $250 investment. That means how much you put in, which is the principal, right? After 5 years, 6%, and then they ask you to do 3 different options, right? So here's what I know. I know my rate is 0.06. I know my principal is $250. I know the time is 5. So I'm then asked to do annually, quarterly, and daily. So annually is going to mean N is 1. Quarterly is going to mean N is 4. And daily is going to mean N is 365. So you're obviously typing these answers into your calculator, but you should be able to write for me what the setup is going to look like, right? So A of 5 is going to be the principal, 250, 1 plus the rate over 1 to the 1 times 5, right? And that's going to give me an approximate value. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but I'm going to change those 1s to 4s. So this is 1 plus 0.06 over 4, right? I changed the N to 4 now, and this is a 4 times 5. All right. And then for the last one, that's a 5, my bad, is going to be 250, 1 plus 0.06 over 365 to the 365 times 5. Now, it's up to you. I'm going to argue that since I just did E2, I could actually just hit second enter, and I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to start with the 365 one. So instead of being a 100, my principal is now a 250, right? Instead of being a 0.5, my rate is now a 0.6, but it's definitely still over the 365, and instead of being a 10, my years are now a 5, and I hit enter, and there's my answer. So again, I'm just going to work backwards because I already had the 365 in my calculator, right? So then I hit second enter, right, and now I'm going to change the 365 into a 4, which is an easier change because I'm deleting numbers, not adding them, right? 365 is now, oh, my bad, I made it a 1, is now a 4. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. There's my second one. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit second enter again. I'm going to change the 4s into 1s. And that's it, right? So being able to enter things quickly in your calculator is definitely its own skill set, which is why I spend a decent amount of time showing you how to do it on these videos. All right, so if we go ahead and drag these back here, that's this one, this one, this one. All right, cool. You will notice that the more times that you compound the interest, the more money is in the account, right? So this is a 334.5, either 5 or 6, depending on if you round or truncate. This is 336.71, right? And this is 337.4, 5 or 6, depending on if you round or truncate, right? And all of those are dollars. Okay, so I've mentioned before that when you're going to use a program like this over and over again, it's really a good idea to make a program, or when you're going to use a formula like this, rather. So I don't know about you, but I think it would be super useful to have a program for this. So let's walk through how we make a program for this, right? So in order to make a program, right, I go to Program. I want to go to New. And I'm going to call it comp int. You don't have to call it comp int. You can call it what you want, but I'm going to call mine comp int. Because I think that the goal of a name, right, for a program is that you should be able to judge pretty quickly what it is without spending a lot of time thinking about it. So I'm pretty sure that's going to say compound interest to me. All right, so I want to go to Program again. And I want to go over to input and output. I want to clear home, right? And then I hit enter again. Now I want to go to program, and I'm going to go to input output, and I want to prompt. And I'm going to prompt for the things that I would normally know, which are P, R, N, and T, because the thing I want is A. So I'm going to prompt for alpha P, which I'm a little blind, comma, alpha R. Again, don't mind me being blind. alpha n and alpha t. Okay, and then I'm gonna hit enter. And then what I want to display is what a of t would be, right? So I'm gonna go to program, I'm gonna go over to input output, and I'm gonna pick display. And a of t is gonna be alpha p times 1 plus, now the reason I don't need parentheses around my r over n is because division would happen before the addition, right? So r over alpha n, right? Close the parentheses. So the r over n will automatically happen before the plus 1. Caret, and then to make sure that both of these things are in the exponent, I do need parentheses. So n t, right? And I close that out, right? So you should always have a test case to run with your program. So honestly, I'm going to use a test case that we literally just did. I'm going to take this one because I know that I got this answer correct. So to get my test case, I'm going to take the one that I know works, right? I'm going to take the one where I said, okay, cool. Probably not the best idea to pick one with a 1, actually. So the reason I say that is because when you're dividing by 1, if you use 1s in your formula, sometimes you miss that you missed a parenthesis. So let's take this one that has a 4, because that way I definitely won't miss a parenthesis. So let's use this as my test case, okay? So I'm going to use something I already did as my test case, because why not? It's easier, right? So I'm going to test my program, right? So I'm going to test my comp int program by using p was 250, r was 0.06, n was 4, and t was 5. I'm going to test it, and I should get this. And if I get this, then my program was written correctly. And if I don't get this, then my program was written incorrectly. All right, so let's go ahead and go through that. So let's go to program, right? Execute. Okay, so my p is 250, right? My r is 0.06. My n is 4. And my t is 5. We hit enter, and let's see how it turns out for us, but it looks right to me. So let's go ahead and drag this over and compare. Hey, look, there we go. We're all good. So we did a test case, we made sure that it works, and we're all good. So keep in mind you have to input the rate as a decimal, and again, we did just walk through how to make this program, but again, if you want to visit my program specifics, we did it in 5.5 of Algebra 2.